feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series. Watson, touchdown. Hunter Renfrow. He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
The Citadel baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers.
Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good Tuesday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and very proudly presented by Motley Rice. Causes, not just cases, MotleyRice.com, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com. Get your next ride for Christmas. Yeah, put one of the big red bows on it for Christmas this year from Stokes Volkswagen. Find us on the JB and Goldwater app, and you can always head to JBandGoldwaterShow.com as well. Make sure you chime in on the Share Healthcare chat lines today. If you're watching on YouTube or if you're on Twitter or Facebook or wherever you are, send us a message. You can always text as well, 843-321-8893. Darren will pop that into our Share Healthcare chat lines and make you a part of our program over the next couple of hours, which is set to be quite busy today. In just a few minutes, we'll be joined once again in Atlanta, Georgia by Cory McCartney. The Braves play tonight. The Houston Astros in Houston, Game 6. And we're going to go comb right through that game with Cory and see what Max Fried has to offer against Luis Garcia. Maybe Atlanta can wrap up their first world title in 26 years. We'll find out here before long. Following Cory, Mike Morgan, he's also in Atlanta. Today is the first release of the 2021 college football season of the college football playoff rankings. We'll see what those look like tonight. We'll get Mike's thoughts on that. Gators and the Gamecocks have a game in Columbia this weekend, and it's getting a little slippery down in Gainesville. At least it appears it is. Dan Mullen basically dismissed a recruiting question yesterday that caught many off guard just based on how he responded, and he's canceled media access for the rest of the week as well, except for the SEC teleconference, which will go tomorrow night. That's it. Nothing more out of the Gators program. And the fact that they're 4-4, 2-4 certainly isn't helping his cause. So we'll talk to Mike about some of that. We've got Keith Allsep this afternoon as well, and he'll be joining us pretty much right in the middle of the Shane Beamer press conference. Last week, Coach did not hold one because they didn't play, but they will this week, as we just discussed. So Keith Allsep, host of the Locked On the Gamecocks podcast, will pop in as well. So it's another full day. We've got some NFL to get to as well, and we got other college football out there. But obviously, Tuesday, Darren, after a night off, the World Series is back in play at 8:09 tonight on Fox, and the Braves have the 3-2 lead. Good afternoon, bud.
Look, I've said it before, right? I mean, it's the World Series. I have a tinge of jealousy for the fan bases of both the Astros and the Braves because of what the emotions, both good and bad, riding on every single pitch. There's nothing like being a fan of one of the teams in the World Series. It's a unique experience. I've been to a Super Bowl where the Redskins, when they were called that, were playing. It's different. I'm telling you, it's different. It's different. And the World Series, maybe it's just because I'm a baseball guy, just like you are. But good luck, right? You got two to win one. Then that's the advantage that the Braves have.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, Max Fried. I mean, this is like we talked about yesterday. It's set up for Atlanta to win it. I mean, you can't have two guys right now who they have available better than these two that are set to go on full rest. I mean, Max Fried, and Ian Anderson. I mean, that's if you're the Braves, that's all you can ask for. You've got your dudes, and it's time to go play baseball. And let's see what happens against, you know, the Astros, who are just, you know, dynamic. There's no question, but it's all right there in front of them for Atlanta. And although it might be disappointing that they're back in Houston, did any of you really expect this thing to be less than 6 or 7 games? I mean, I didn't. I certainly thought the Braves were going to win their share, and I still think they're going to win the World Series, but I surely didn't think the Astros would go away in 4 or 5, Darren, and vice versa. If it was Houston on top, I didn't think the Braves would go away in 4 or 5. So, you know, here we are. Corey will certainly add plenty of insight in this one, but this is going to be a lot of fun tonight. And, you know, Max Fried's had his struggles. So we'll see if he can kind of pull it together here. I don't know. It's going to be certainly a challenge over there. The lefty-righty thing just right now is worrying me a little bit.
The thing, I mean, and that obviously starting pitching, right? That's obviously the key. The Astros haven't won a game in this World Series when they've scored fewer than 5 runs. I don't think they've won a game in the postseason scoring fewer than 5 runs. They woke up in the last game in Game 5 after you guys had held them down for quite some time. That's the key, right? The Astros have a historically good offense. If you can continue to keep it down, that's the key. Or did they find their mojo? That we'll see.
Yeah, well, Luis Garcia may have found his. I mean, he really struggled for a while. There was a stretch where he didn't give up less than 5 earned runs from the 29th of September through the 16th of October. But since then, 5 2/3 against the Sox, a hit, no earned, 7 strikeouts and a walk. And then he did get the start against the Braves this past Friday, and through 3 2/3 only gave up 1 earned on 3 hits. He did walk 4. But only 1 earned run in his last 9+ innings pitched. So he's been doing his job, and I think that's going to probably be something we're going to get into here in just a minute with Corey, is if you're Max Fried, your job early here is don't give up anything big because, you know, you more than likely runs are going to be at a premium for Atlanta, and Luis Garcia has not been a guy who's been going deep in ball games. Matter of fact, the deepest he's gone was against Boston, and that was just 5 2/3. It's not like he's been in there for 7 or 8 innings. So, you know, expect this guy. They're going to probably try to get him a decision, 5. But if you're Atlanta, you got to survive the first 4 or 5 innings and then give yourselves a chance in the Astros bullpen to maybe try to take this thing away. So Max Fried, he can't come out tonight and have an inning or 2 where he's trying to find it, and all of a sudden you look up and you're down 3-0 or something like that. That might be all she wrote.
And the other, Minute Maid Park, by the way, I heard one of the Astros announcers during the postseason call it the juice box. I hadn't heard that before, and I absolutely love it. But the juice box can be quiet if you take them out of it early. If you let them get in it early, if you let them get fired up early, them and the team, that would be a worst case scenario for the Braves.
Yeah, it wouldn't be good. But the best case scenario for the Braves would be to win the World Series tonight. And Cory McCartney is here to tell us maybe how they can get that done. Game 6 is only exactly now 8 hours away from first pitch, 8:09 tonight. So good timing, Cory. What's up, man?
How's it going?
Well, we're here. We are Game 6. I just mentioned I didn't know of anybody that thought it would be less than that. I mean, after the Duvall Grand Slam the other night, I think we all started kind of dreaming a little bit. Like, well, now wait a second here. This might happen today, but it didn't. And Max Fried's going to get another crack at Houston tonight in Minute Maid.
Yeah, I mean, I anticipated this was going to be finished up one way or the other in Houston, and obviously, Fried goes into this. He's at a 5.4 ERA this postseason, 7.74 in his last 3 starts, including career high 6 earned runs in Game 2 when he allowed 7 hits over 5 innings against this Astro team. So, obviously, things have not gone right for him. This was the hottest pitcher in baseball after the All-Star break, went into the postseason with the best ERA. After the break, a lot's been made of the speed of his delivery of late. Eric O'Flaherty, the former Braves reliever, kind of broke that down on Twitter. Was showing you how it's kind of changed for him of late. Obviously, a lot riding on him. Yesterday, he talked about of late, he thinks he's been doing things the same way he was during that really hot run. So, I mean, obviously, we'll see how he handles what looks to be a rejuvenated Houston offense.
Yeah, no, there's no question. I mean, this team's going to swing the sticks, Corey, and they did against him earlier in the series. But I mean, the glass half full side of this conversation is, regardless of anything that has happened in the last 5 ball games, Atlanta's set up. I mean, yeah, Charlie Morton isn't here, but he would have pitched game 5. Like, this is how they scripted this thing, to where Max Fried and Ian Anderson are ready to go in 6 and 7 on full rest if they get there, and they're there. So, I mean, I don't look at this as anything other than the Atlanta Braves are right where they want to be with 2 guys who've gotten them this far.
Yeah, you mean obviously that's a way to look at it, and certainly last time out, I mean you could say that Brian Snitker put Drew Smyly in and waited to see if his offense found an answer before he kind of went to those workhorses that have gotten him so far in the postseason with that bullpen. He didn't have to use Luke Jackson. He was started warming up, never got to Tyler Matzik. Will Smith never pitched. Obviously, AJ Minter went multiple innings, and that could be a factor of whether he's available in Game 6. Obviously, he would be in 7 if it were to go that far. Minter said he's ready to go for Game 6. Certainly, both managers have to look at this. If you're Brian Snitker, you're doing everything you can to avoid a Game 7. If you're Dusty Baker, you're managing for the second straight game, all hands on deck, and how do we push this thing to another game? So I think there's going to be, certainly some elements at play here. What is Brian Snitker going to get into a situation where if things start to go awry in this game, puts his foot down and says, we're not getting this to a 7, then potentially what does that do for the Braves if it does go to 7? So I think there's going to be, certainly some variables at play here, but first and foremost, they need Max Fried to go deep into this game. They did not get that out of him the last time, and that's going to be a major factor for that team in this game.
What's important? I'm sorry.
Well, it's all right. Jamie and I have talked about it, I don't know, throughout the week, throughout the World Series, however long it's gone at this point. The plan, right? Snitker sticking to a plan, and it was never more evident than in Game 3 when the no-hitter is alive, and we're gonna stick to the plan, and we're gonna win the game. What point in this game could change that plan, could force his hand in a Game 6 to say, you know what, best case is this, but you know what, I'm changing my plan here now?
Fried doesn't go deep. I mean, I think that's the main thing. Like, let's say this Fried start looks like the last one, or it looks like the one before that against the Dodgers. And if they have success against him early, and you get into a situation where you think, okay, our offense has to bail us out in this game, but we can't allow the opposing team to get any deeper and rack up any more runs. I think that's where things could get dicey. If Fried is not effective early, and the Astros jump on him, and they have to potentially, go into that bullpen early on, I think that's where things could get a little bit dicey, because certainly, you've used up, you used up Kyle Wright, in a bulk role 2 games ago. I mean, obviously he could step back in and be that guy for you again in this one. I don't think Drew Smyly can fill that role for you. And I think as much as the bullpen has been, so key in the Braves, getting to this point and even being a win away from the World Series, it goes. I mean, it's cliche, but it's true. The more times a professional hitter sees somebody, the less tricks that pitcher has up their sleeve. So I think the more you put on that bullpen in this game, I think could be dangerous territory.
Yeah, that's why I pretty much predicted yesterday. I don't know if it'll be true or not, but I told Darren, I said, watch for Max Fried's first pitch of the game to be a breaking ball to Jose Altuve, which is rare in baseball, but it happens, and it certainly might tonight. So what does early success look like for him? I mean, obviously, that's where his struggles have been, trying to get off on the right foot. And with this lineup, who's already seen him, and they've already been very successful against him. I think they tagged him for 4, I believe, in the second inning last Wednesday. So what would success look like from Max Fried's standpoint as far as a game plan goes?
Locating his fastball. I mean, I think it's foundation for anybody, but I think it's so big for him because that sweeping curveball, is such a weapon for him that he has to keep guys from kind of waiting on that pitch, right? Like, how effective is he in locating that fastball to keep guys swinging at that, so they're not just sitting around waiting for him to throw that looping curve.
All right, so Luis Garcia is going to pitch tonight for Houston, and he threw Friday, I think, I can't remember how many innings.
Yeah, he's on short rest.
He's on short rest. What went into that decision? Do you know?
Well, they used Jose Urquidy for an inning in Game 5, 14 pitches. So I think that had a lot to play into it. Obviously, getting him ready for that opportunity, and I think they could obviously go back to him in 7 if it gets that far. But I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if if it gets to that point tonight that Dusty Baker goes right back to Urquidy in this game. But certainly, they're holding somebody at bay that they could use in that situation. But I think that had a lot to do with it was, you used Urquidy in 5 and obviously, you didn't want to do him that way and then bring him right back out to start 6.
All right. So that was a two-sided question from my standpoint. That was one. The other side actually pertains to the Braves. And if Brian Snitker, let's say, hypothetically speaking here, Atlanta's got a 1 or 2 run lead later in the game, 6th inning, 7th inning. Clearly, I know what the game plan has been thus far at trying to get into that bullpen. They've all kind of found their role, in addition to the fact that Will Smith is the closer. But I mean, Matzik and Jackson and those guys, he's for the most part managed them, I think, really, really, really well. But let's say the Braves have a 1 or 2 run lead, and they go, well, let's just try to win this thing tonight. Is there any chance at all that we could see Ian Anderson come in for a short pitch count to get 3 or 4 outs somewhere and then actually see him back out there on the bump tomorrow as a starter?
I don't think they would do that with him. Obviously, certainly you want him for 7 if it gets to there. But, I just think with his age and the fact that they've been kind of cautious with some things with him, I think they have such faith in that bullpen. I would be more surprised, that we didn't see AJ Minter in that spot as opposed to being surprised if we saw Ian Anderson there. So even though we saw Minter in multiple innings last game, I would much see more inclined for them to put him in that position than they would to move Anderson to an unfamiliar role, because it obviously also goes to a guy who's never pitched out of the bullpen before. And I don't think you want to put him into a situation where he's doing that on the biggest stage in which he would ever pitch.
Cory McCartney, 12:18 on this Tuesday afternoon, talkingchop.com. But y'all had some just brilliant stuff as always, but a lot of your conversations that I've been able to watch and things like that have just really been awesome, man. So thank you for the content. This Braves team has kind of been here before, but not here in a while. It's the World Series. Last year it was the National League Championship Series. What's going on in the clubhouse? I mean, what do you know about the conversations that have been had? How loose are they? How have they handled this 3-2 lead now that they're going back to Houston?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because Brian Snitker talked about that yesterday during his availability before the team, got back on the plane to head to Houston. And he said, the only time I ever hear about pressure is when I talk to you guys. He's like, it's not evident. It's not evident when I'm in the clubhouse, when we're around the guys. He said they just don't have that vibe to them that they're feeling it at all. And I don't think they felt that at all. I mean, you could say, that's because, there's the sense that they weren't supposed to be here and all, whatever. But, I just think it's just the way things have kind of unfolded for them after they, went out and got Jock Peterson, and he helped to kind of change the vibe in that clubhouse, and obviously the leadership of Freddie Freeman. I just, it's funny to hear that from the manager, but that's where the pressure comes from. It's all external at this point.
I mean, I think it's a great response. I mean, obviously, they've added guys who've been here before, and they've been in the postseason for 4 straight years. So, I mean, at some point in time, you just go play baseball, and that's really kind of what they've been able to do. It appears. Oh, and by the way, the coaching staff, they've all been here too. I mean, all of them. So, this is something I think that there is a part of it that obviously there's going to be times where it's going to creep in there, right? We probably need to try to get this thing done. But at the same time, if I had anything to worry about, though, Cory, it would really have nothing to do with the lineup. It's all in the young arms that they have. And if Luke Jackson gets a chance to pitch tonight, which I'll be honest, I think he's going to pitch tonight at some point in time, what does he look like? What does Fried look like? Some of these younger guys, Ian Anderson tomorrow night, if he's starting Game 7 of a World Series, and you can throw in other names from there. I mean, Smiley and Wright have been named, and they've had their ups and downs. Quick side note, I mean, I used to watch this kid pitch a lot when he was in the SEC, and I don't think people understand. Kyle Wright is gross. I mean, his stuff is ridiculous, man. And he's going to be, if he can figure it out up here, he's going to be in the big leagues a long time, Corey. So I'll be anxious to see what those guys look like.
Yeah, I think with Wright, it's always been kind of interesting because he came up right alongside of Freed in this organization and Mike Soroka. And, you think about Ian Anderson and trying to come up and not only, vie for a role, but vie for a role with that trio. And you're also supplementing them with proven veterans. It's hard to crack that nut if you're Kyle Wright and stick around in that way. And I'm not even mentioning guys like Tuki Tucson and on and Kyle Muller. I mean, there's just arms after arms in this organization. I think it's been almost to Kyle Wright's detriment at times that he hasn't had an opportunity like some of the others have to go up there and get a longer leash to kind of prove his ability to stick around. But, I think we saw from him in that, 4 2/3 a couple nights ago that, this kid can actually do it on a major stage. But you mentioned the lineup. I do wonder, though, what's going on with Ozzie Albies and whether or not we see him slide down a little bit. I mean, he's hitting 167 in this series, which is the lowest among the regulars. You had an 11-game postseason hitting streak. He just, to me right now, just looks lost. He's always been a really aggressive hitter. But it seems like he's just putting so much on himself to go up there and create opportunities. And think about him batting righty against Zach Greinke, which is that we don't see obviously. We've seen him do that, I believe, before that game 9 times in his entire career that he's hit righty against a righty. So I think he might be pressing a little bit, but certainly, if you have a bad day at this time of the year, it's got to feel like a bad month.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, you say all that, and Ozzie Albies is probably going to come out like gangbusters tonight. I mean, he's that type of guy, though, Corey. I mean, he doesn't stay down for long yet. They're all going to have their struggles. I think what stands out, though, about that comment, and I agree with you, is he's had a couple of plays in the infield where he just, and that's not him. I mean, he's a smooth cat out there, and he's had a couple of hiccups here and there, and so that leads me to believe it's just all upstairs, and he just needs to clear it out and one swing of the bat can change that in a hurry, as you know.
Yeah.
All right. So early on in the game tonight, what are you going to be watching for from Atlanta's lineup? And seeing Luis Garcia, he had his struggles for a while, and he's kind of put it together the last 2 starts. I think a little over 9 innings pitched total, only 1 earned run. He did walk 4 last week against the Braves, but overall he's been solid for Houston on the bump. So what's important early on for Atlanta, and what will the lineup look like? Is it Soler at the top?
Yeah, I believe it should be. I've not seen anything on that yet, but I would believe he will be still at the top. I'm looking on how much they barrel him up. I mean, that was something I think that's been a consistent presence for this team against these Houston pitchers is those hard hit balls that are 95 mile an hour or plus. They've been thriving on putting the ball in play and doing it with authority. Over and over again. So I think, how aggressive are they? I mean, obviously you're going to want to run up a pitch count for a guy who, is a young guy who's pitching at this kind of a stage. But I think certainly, just their ability to barrel up balls, I think is a major factor for this team, because the more they do that, the more they're going to be the ability for them to produce runs and get them put Garcia in tough situations. So we know the game plan for this team. They can hit up and down the lineup, but I think aggressiveness early on and trying to barrel him up repeatedly is going to be a major piece of this.
All right. If we see struggles again early from Max Fried and they got to go get him, who do we see?
That's a good question. I think Wright could be an option. I mean, obviously, you got Jesse Chavez who can pitch multiples for you, but I don't think they even want to have that thought. I think you're going to try to get him as deep into this thing as you can, because I think the longer you can go before we start to see Minter and Matzik and Jackson is going to be for the betterment of this team.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to wonder. I mean, Brian Snitker has a difficult job tonight, because you have to wonder how much he throws in the tank, which we all theoretically are thinking, well, he's going to throw everything he's got. It's the World Series. You want to go try to win it. Yeah, well, if for some reason you can't, you got Game 7 tomorrow, and you don't want to leave yourself in a bad spot. So there is a balance. He's going to have to figure out what it is. That's up for him. That's I don't know what that balance looks like, but it will be interesting to see how he manages this as opposed to Dusty Baker, who this is it. I mean, they have to win tonight, so they're going to throw everything and anything at Atlanta.
Yeah, and that was honestly, it doesn't feel like it's an advantage, but it is an advantage, right? Because for Dusty Baker, you're just trying to get to tomorrow. And as much as we talk about this time of year, you manage for today and worry about tomorrow. Well, that's the case for Dusty Baker, but Brian Snitker certainly has a different mindset because he can't drain the tank. So if that's why I think the Ian Anderson thing just is not going to happen, because you've got to hold him with the possibility that we're going to need this guy. So I mean, I don't know that. I mean, obviously these guys are extremely young, but I don't know that Max Fried is ever going to have more pressure on himself as a pitcher than he's going to have tonight, because you can take a lot of things off the table by just having the kind of outing we've seen out of him for the past 3 months. But if it looks like it has for the past 2 weeks, it could be a long night for the Braves.
If the Braves are this loose, right, and they obviously are, they're saying all the right things, they're doing all the right things. It's, we get 2 chances to win 1. The word from the other side is pretty similar, right? Because the word from Houston is, hey, we feel good. We've got it coming back home. This is a fine spot to be in. What do you expect to see out of Houston tonight, other than obviously what you just said with Dusty? It's all hands on deck to get to tomorrow. The attitude of Houston right out of the gates. What do you expect to look like, or that team to look like?
Confident. I mean, think about a couple of the hits that they had, long outs in Atlanta. And you heard during the broadcast, okay, in 26, 27 ballparks, that's a home run, including Houston. I mean, I think that's a factor here, right? Is that we know that these guys can hit this Braves pitching staff. They're going to be back in a place where they've shown they can hit them, and we know what they can do in this ballpark. So, and they had the added addition of no longer having to figure out what is Yordan Alvarez going to give us in the outfield, because now he gets to slide right back into that DH role. So I think that's the factor too here, is that now you get to see a full strength Houston team where they're no longer having a pitcher go up there and just, wave the white flag. Obviously that helps the Braves out too, but we know this is how Houston even got to this point. It was riding that extra bat with the DH.
All right, final one before we let you go. Obviously they're not going to play in Atlanta again this year, but the Braves did get 3 World Series contests in Truist Park. I had goosebumps the other night with Hank Aaron's family out on the mound, being honored. What did this mean to the city of Atlanta? Again, after everything they've been through this year, a political debacle and pulling that All-Star game out of there, and now Hank Aaron's hands all over this World Series in so many ways. But the Braves, for the first time in a while, welcomed World Series games back into Atlanta. What was it like, and what did it mean?
Yeah, it was electric, right? I mean, I think you could feel that throughout those 3 games, even watching on television, you could feel, how electric that atmosphere was. And, obviously the fans, have been waiting a long time. It's been 1999 since they hosted one, 96 and was the last time they had won a home World Series game. So, certainly there was a lot of anticipation, and, you add the added, atmosphere there with the Battery and everything going around it. I mean, you could see that even watching, the post-game shows with Frank Thomas and Ortiz and them, that you could see how many people were behind them. And obviously, I think that's the added piece of this, right? Is that, the All-Star game was taken away, and everything to do with Hank Aaron and that celebration. I think it was really, I think, go back to, the tear down and building this team back up and moving into that ballpark. And it kind of just felt like a culmination, even though this wasn't the year they weren't supposed to be here this year. But I think hosting this party the way they got to was obviously huge for that franchise and city.
Go Braves. Let's win it tonight in Houston. Cory, it could be magical. And if not, then it could be magical tomorrow. We'll see. Nonetheless,
it'll be magical for one of them tomorrow if it's not tonight.
Somebody's going to have some magic at some point in time in the next 48 hours or so.
Yep.
So we're certainly looking forward to that. Thank you so much, man. We'll wait and see what happens, and we'll get back in touch with you. TalkingChop.com can get you as prepared as anything out there for the ball game tonight. Cory is excellent at what he does. That's why we have him on here. Thank you for coming on short rest, my friend.
I appreciate it, guys.
There you go. Cory McCartney in Atlanta, Georgia. 12:30 here on the JB and Goldwater show. It is time for a timeout. When we return back to Atlanta, we go. Mic'd up with Mike Morgan, the ESPN, the SEC Network, joining us next.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. You know what happens when you sell record numbers of new vehicles? That's right, we take in record numbers of local trades. Despite what the news is saying, quality pre-owned vehicles really aren't that hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate and on the web at stokesvw.com. We've got over 1,200 pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and all at a fraction of the price when new. Every vehicle has been inspected and reconditioned, many with the balance of factory warranty. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, you don't need meet the perfect credit to get approved for a quality pre-owned vehicle. And we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us. You're going to love our pre-owned selection, I guarantee it. So come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or StokesVW.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Negative trade equity financed a new loan, subject to lender approval.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work, and two others you probably don't think much about, stuck with a big medical bill or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. sharehealthcare.com.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
You hear me talk about Dog and Duck all the time, and there's no other place I'm going to watch my college and NFL than the Dog and Duck. They have 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road. They have specials all football season long, like $12 pitchers of their own D2 brew, $5 pints of Sierra Nevada, weekly pick'em sheets with prizes, and the best wings in town, bar none. For all your football, college, and NFL, the Dog and Duck, Clements Ferry Road, Bell Hall, and Park West.
Motley Rice LLC is a law firm with international reach, but it hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for people harmed by products including asbestos and talc exposure, medical drugs and devices, and also catastrophic injuries.
1, 2, mic check.
Including dangerous Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. Visit motleyrice.com. Thank you, Motley Rice, for supporting the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show.
Hey, South Carolina, what's going on? This is Patrick Davis, and you are listening to my friends JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
All right, 12:33 Tuesday afternoon. Welcome back. The JB and Goldwater Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice. Causes, not just cases. MotleyRice.com. Mr. Everything joins us. Mike Morgan from ESPN, the SEC Network, the ACC Network, the NFL, NBA, NHL, soccer, cricket, mole cricket, all of it. Yeah, what's up?
What was that last one?
Mole crickets. You call mole crickets. No, I'm just kidding. Do you know what mole crickets are?
I have no idea. No.
They're in the grass, right? Aren't they little critters?
Yeah, they eat your grass roots. They're ugly little bastards.
Oh, okay. No, I've never called cricket.
No,
I had a good friend of mine, Suki, who is from India, and he owns some restaurants, some Schlotsky's Delis in Columbia.
Oh,
which was a proud sponsor of our show there, and he would try to sell me on cricket. He'd be like, Mike, I'm telling you, you laugh, but if you like baseball, you'll like cricket. And I'm like, Suki, the games go on for like a week. Like I don't have that much of attention span. He's like, you gotta see the brilliance within the game. So a few years ago, my producer for our Braves spring training games, he had this opportunity and he took it because they gave him a big fat check. He broadcasted pro basketball in India. He was the producer in India. Cedric Ceballos was the analyst, and he wanted me to go to India. I think it was in the winter time, so it would conflict with my other duties, but he wanted me to call pro basketball in India. And I was very intrigued by it because I'm never going to go to India otherwise. It would have been a heck of an experience and just different culture and everything. Like I would literally set up shop there for 3 months and just call pro basketball. I couldn't do it. But had I done it, I would have gone and watched some cricket in person because it's huge over there to finally, put all the mystery behind it.
I spent 6 months in Australia, and cricket on the beach is like fine, but the game itself is just gouging. It takes forever. Like you said, they go on for a week. And I have some buddies, production guys. They just did that basketball thing in India like 2 or 3 years ago and loved it.
Oh, wow.
They were over there for a couple of months.
Wow. Now, wait a minute. You buried the lead there. You were in Australia for 6 months?
I was the semester abroad. So I went. Yeah. I got a tattoo before I went so that I'd be cool, and then dated a girl from Boston instead of meeting an Australian girl. Like the second week I was there, I linked up with a chick from Boston and dated her the whole time.
And whatever happened to her?
She's married. Not to me.
She married an Australian guy.
She married an Australian guy. Who wouldn't? My buddy married an Australian girl. In fact, still lives there.
A great place.
I've always wanted to go, but here's the deal. So I could only go in the summertime. You can't go to Australia for like 3 days. You got to go for like 2 weeks at least because it takes so long to get there. But our summer is their winter, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I go in our American summer and it's winter over there, I'm not really experiencing all of Australia the way I should.
That's true. It's still awesome though.
Yeah. It's on the bucket list. Trust me. It is on the bucket list.
The only problem is the sports. My parents were genuinely concerned, and rightfully so, that I'd never come back. The people are great. Sydney is as clean as can possibly be.
Yeah.
Very different from Melbourne. But the sports, you miss sports. Like they have baseball and basketball and rugby. It's awesome. But you miss sports, like real sports.
I would imagine so.
Maybe,
how are you?
Do y'all want to talk about some real sports, or
we'll go over my honeymoon plans and the off the air.
I mean, whatever y'all want to do.
No. Good. What you got?
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
What's on the hot? What's on the hot plate today?
Oh, there's a lot going on, right? Let's see. The Braves play tonight. Oh, I am going to talk some Florida, South Carolina with you here in just a second.
Sure.
Who's your top four, Mike? Who are the top four tonight?
I'm shaking my head only because I know it means so little to do this. I mean, this is
how often? Has there ever been a top four that's held intact? No, there hasn't.
Not at all. I remember the first year it came out, a less than great Texas A&M team was number 4, and then by the time the season was over, they were like, I don't know, out of the top 25. Mm-hmm. This means so little. Look, it's TV. It's a TV show and it's college football, so people are going to tune in. So I get it, but it means nothing. But since you asked, I haven't really given much thought to it. Georgia won. I'm going to go on based who I think the 4 best teams are, not based on resume. So I'm going Georgia 1. I'm going Alabama 2. And then I've got 3 teams that I have to squeeze into 2 spots. And those 3 teams.
Before you say anything, is Cincinnati in those 3?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's Cincinnati, Ohio State, Oklahoma.
Oh, now what about Michigan State?
You're asking me who the 3 best teams are. I'm telling you, I think Ohio State comes out of the Big Ten.
Okay.
And Oklahoma comes out of the Big 12.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, they're Michigan State will likely be there because they deserve to be there. So I'm not trying to rain on that parade at all. Nor am I raining on Cincinnati's parade. Coach Fickle's did an amazing job. They should have beaten Georgia in the bowl game last year. They are legit, but I don't think they're one of the top 4 teams. So, I mean, for me, it would probably be, and this is chalkish, although this is not how it'll appear tonight, Georgia, Bama, Oklahoma, Ohio State.
Okay.
That's just who I think the best 4 teams are, not necessarily most deserving. Because Cincinnati certainly deserves. And Michigan State, if you assume they're going to win out, well, then they're in. I just don't assume that.
Yeah, I mean, this should be the 4 best teams, right? Like they're supposed to rank these teams each week as the 4 best teams in college football.
Well, but you know how that is. That's always a
I agree.
slippery slope argument because the old line, and we use this in basketball too. Well, the eye test, the eye test. Well, so often our eyes are wrong. So don't give me the eye test. You do have to base it in large part on resume. And so that's where I think a committee full of, and I didn't even look who the list of the committee is this year, but I'm sure it's some former coaches, some former ADs, current ADs. They're going to go based on resume over eye test. And therefore, they're going to have, I mean, one of your listeners just brought up a good point. What about Wake Forest?
Mm-hmm.
I had them earlier in the year, and I mean, they're good. And by the way, Wake Forest is undefeated. Who's the best player for Michigan State right now?
Yeah, Kenneth Walker.
Kenneth Walker was with Wake Forest last year.
Mm-hmm.
He transferred. I mean, could you imagine if Wake Forest had Kenneth Walker? And yet they're still undefeated. They have a great offense. They just don't have a championship defense, so they're not going to make the playoff. But it's a tremendous story led by Coach Clausen, who does more with less as much as anybody in the country.
Yeah, I mean, those are outside of the top 4. If you ask me, what else is going to be notable tonight? Wake Forest is something I'm really keeping an eye on here because, I mean, Mike, Wake Forest absolutely has a chance to go undefeated this year. I mean, they seemingly are better than North Carolina, who they play this week. They've got NC State, they've got Clemson and Boston College. It's not an easy end to the season for Wake, but it is doable. They can win those games, and if they go 12-0, this would be, I feel like, the first time ever that we'd see maybe an undefeated Power 5 team. I'm not predicting they go undefeated, by the way, but it would be the first time ever we had an undefeated Power 5 team that would actually have a better chance of being left out than put in, just based on where it stands today. Right now.
And of course, they'd have to win the ACC championship game, go 13-0 to have a legitimate shot. I don't think that happens.
I don't either.
I don't think that happens. So I mean, it's one of those, we'll cross that bridge if we ever get to it. I don't think we will. I don't think we'll get to an undefeated Michigan State bridge either. And so, look, if I'm wrong, then I just adjust my poll. This is nothing but a beauty contest at this point anyway. It doesn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
The poll doesn't matter until the committee has to make the selection, the Sunday or Monday after conference championship Saturday.
Yeah.
So, we're just throwing stuff out there. It's fun to talk about, but those would be my 4 teams that I think are the best teams and have the best chance at the end of the season of being in the playoff.
I do think it's interesting, though, just not because of where teams are ranked necessarily, like top 4, but what their thinking is, right? Mackenzie points out Oregon and Ohio State. That's one of them. Where will they be? Who will be above the other one? Wake Forest, we talk about Michigan State and Cincinnati. Just the thinking early on because then you get an idea as the weeks play out of where they sit, where their minds sit, and how that could be adjusted.
Right.
Week 1, I guess.
And then, the old days, like, committees were so, voters were so reluctant to leapfrog. Mm-hmm. If a team was ahead of the other team, and the team that was ahead didn't lose a game, well, then you couldn't dare leapfrog over that team.
Right.
In this scenario, that's not the case. It's happened before, and it'll happen again.
Mm-hmm.
So just because you're number 2 and you keep winning doesn't mean someone could leapfrog you and you could fall to number 3 the following week, which is the way it should be. Because in essence, where you are now doesn't really mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
and this is all very subjective. So you don't have to get obsessed with, well, I'm 3, or better example, you don't have to be obsessed with, well, I'm number 5, and if 1 through 4 keep winning, then I can't get in this thing. Well, that's not the case at all. You could certainly leapfrog at any time, because your strength of schedule might be stronger down the stretch. The team ahead of you might be winning games, but they look really ugly and they look less impressive by the week. So all those things can happen with a committee voting the way they do now, as opposed to the coaches were always, if you're undefeated, you're undefeated, and you can't lose spots. They would have their rules, and you had biased AP voters had their rules. Like, it was just so bad. I can't believe we used to determine national championships that way. I'm not saying this is perfect, and there's so much talk now about. There's a great write-up by Ross Dellinger, who's really good for SI, and he wrote on because they're going to vote on this thing again. Is it this week? About expansion, and the hang up is not expanding. The hang up is 8 or 12.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that insist it has to be 8. And then there's some that insist, well, no, 12 is better. It's more inclusive. It's more money. In fact, it's $450 million more money. And my thing is, what conference commissioner has the stones to walk away from that kind of coin? And you can't possibly tell me it's going to hurt you. And they'll throw out things like, well, it's too many games, the safety of the student athlete. Come on. First of all, how many times are you going to get into the playoff?
It's
one extra game. It's such a not.
It's one extra game for 2 teams.
For 2 teams, right?
And name one person on either one of those teams is going to go. It's the national championship, but I am not playing. That's
I just can't do it. I'm gassed at this point. I just don't have another one.
Ridiculous.
No,
people say that. I'm like, listen to yourself talk.
Listen to yourself talk. Right. That argument and the academic one really. I mean, that's a laugh riot every time you say something like that. So I hope, again, you know me, I thought it'd be 8 all along. But I will gladly be wrong. The way they presented the 12, I thought was brilliant. I thought it's the best way you can do that, and it makes sense on so many levels, and it's going to line the pockets of a lot of folks. So,
well, they're not going to get 8 anyways. I mean, Sankey said yesterday it's going to be 4 or 12, and
right.
I got bad news for people. You got to have Greg Sankey's vote if you want 8, and you ain't gonna get it. So it's going to be 4 or 12.
And I don't understand completely why, but 8 doesn't offer a single dollar more to the coffers. 12 offers $450 million.
Wait, 8 doesn't increase the money at all from where it currently is?
That's what I read. If they implemented 8 early in this contract, it would not change the overall jackpot. I guess because you'd be trading dollars from New Year's Day bowl games to an 8-team playoff, but it would just be apples to apples. Whereas if you expand to 12, now we got an extra $450 million to divvy up.
So it'll be 12.
I think so, but because some conference commissioner, because remember, it has to be a unanimous vote. All it takes is one guy to go, I'm standing on my laurels here, and well, that would delay it for 5 years. Because we've got 5 years left on this deal. So we're trying to get this thing in 2023, 24. You got to get everybody on board to do that. And I don't know if they're going to get all the votes. I don't think Conference USA's vote's really going to matter, since they are basically the Titanic. And I mean, all you can see is like the railing off the bow of the ship just corking up and down. But Conference USA is about to be a dodo.
And Leonardo DiCaprio just hanging out up there, all blue-faced and everything.
Hanging out, and, meanwhile, Kate Winslet hogs the little piece of ice, doesn't allow Leonardo to share it and save his life. Very selfish move on her part.
Oh, God, that snobby little you-know-what.
Yeah, right. Yeah, not a fan.
12:50 here, Mike. Let's turn the page to the Gators and the Gamecocks this week. We actually haven't talked South Carolina football with you in a while, but I'm going to enter this from Florida's side yesterday, Dan Mullen took some heat from local, and regional, and national media, really, for comments he made about recruiting. I watched it. I don't know that he meant we're not recruiting in season. I don't think that's what he was saying. I think what he said was, I'm not addressing recruiting with you right now. We can talk about my football team.
Right.
And Dan's a little perturbed. They're 4-4. They're 2-4 in the league. So it's been a tough go of it. Saying all that, Mike, Florida fans, I get it. You're a Gator. You didn't hire a guy in his third or fourth year, whatever it is now, to go 2-4 out of the gates. You expect to be a little bit better than that. But they've got to come to Columbia. It's going to be chilly in Williams-Brice Stadium. Carolina obviously has not been good, and they're trying to piece things together, more than likely with a new quarterback. We'll hear from Shane in a little while, see if he names a starter or not. But from the Gators side of things, where are they here? They're 4-4, 2-4 in the league. Some heat on Mullen. Where do things stand down there?
I think they're in the a term that JC and I use a lot on the podcast. They're in the abyss. Look, I don't know what their fan base expected. You lose Kyle Trask, who is basically Mac Jones 2.0, who's tearing it up in the NFL right now, an incredibly accurate and really good passer. Like, he's a pro. Kyle Pitts is a once-in-a-generation tight end. Kadarius Toney was really good. Like, they lost all those guys. And they're trying to piecemeal it together with two running quarterbacks that at times make electric plays, and then other times they just make silly mistakes and don't look like they have a great handle on the offense. So I expected a drop-off. Like, to me, this was the easiest year to handicap the Eastern Division of the SEC. It was Georgia and then everybody else. It was Georgia 1, it was Vanderbilt 7, and then good luck picking 2 through 6. That to me were the two automatics. But you can't convince a Florida fan when they lose some of these games that it's not good enough. And like you said, of course, Dan Mullen is recruiting throughout the year. See, here's the thing about Dan compared to somebody like a Shane Beamer. Dan has no bedside manner.
No.
Dan doesn't care to say the things that might be interpreted better. He just, no filter, whatever comes to his mind, and he's got a little bit of I ain't got time for any BS type mentality about him, which, again, when you're winning is adorable, and when you're losing, it rubs people the wrong way. So here's Dan rubbing some of his own fan base the wrong way. And then there's Georgia fans out there in the corner stoking the flames going, yeah, we got him. You got Georgia fans calling the Fine Bomb show every day going, I hope Dan Mullen stays. I don't think they really believe that, because the fact is Dan's a good coach and a great play caller. And if they ever figure out the recruiting side, then Florida can be very dangerous again. But it's not just the head coach that recruits, as you guys know. Mm-hmm. When Spurrier was reeling in all those studs out of the Rock Hill area, I mean, a lot of that was Ellis Johnson and Lawing and Steve and Shane Beamer. Yeah, I mean, Steve was never a great recruiter either. No. That was not his thing. He didn't like it. Yep. And then you got Kirby throwing salt in the wounds, going, "Well, I think recruiting is the most important thing we do." That was deliberate. That was hey, well, he might not think it's important, but I sure do. Like, that was definitely, there's a lot of cat and mouse going on, a lot of gamesmanship going on. And when you're Georgia and you are riding high right now, you can have some fun with this. But I would just caution Florida fans, Jim McElwain, Will Muschamp, they didn't do what Dan Mullen did in a short amount of time. And it can always be worse. So if you fire him in a year where LSU and Southern Cal are already open, Virginia Tech likely to be open, Texas Tech, TCU, like who the last time, remember, you got turned down twice. Scott Frost said no, and Chip Kelly said no. So, like I always remind fan bases, not everybody thinks your job is the best job. I don't know who's waiting in the wings that Florida fans feel like would be a slam dunk hire if this doesn't work out.
What do you foresee this weekend in this game here? I mean, South Carolina's
I have
finding-
no idea how to forecast South Carolina right now. I just don't. I don't know who the quarterback is going to be. Do you?
More than likely, I would say more than likely it's going to be Jason Brown. We'll find out in probably
Okay.
30 minutes.
The depth chart came out with the or.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Okay. So I
Well-
mean, I don't know what to expect there.
I'm more asking this from the side of Florida. I mean, what will Florida look like? I mean, because for Carolina, they need to look horrible in order for the Gamecocks to have a chance to win the game. You know, they got to be basically checked out. But the reality of it is, although they're 4-4, Mike, their final 4 games are more than winnable. I mean, they should finish the year 8-4.
Yeah, and it would be much better for Dan, obviously, if they did, because you lose this game or do not lose to Florida State, and it'll be the longest off season of your life. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I watched LSU completely check out, and then all of a sudden they found out O was getting fired, and then they played hard and they beat Florida, but that was a team that checked out. I don't know if Florida's there. Like, I don't think that they're just checking out. Emory Jones, when he's a huge competitor. Like, I don't know if he's a great SEC quarterback, but I know that kid is attitude, heart. Like, he's not going to be shorted there.
Yeah.
But the one thing about college football compared to NFL, the noise does affect the locker room very often. So the noise is out there, and those players know the noise is out there. So could they be less than great in terms of effort? And it's possible, but I don't think they're like going to tank on Dan Mullen. I don't think there's some player revolt. But Dan Mullen is a pretty likable coach that players typically like. The fans have a problem with Dan Mullen. I don't think the players have a problem with Dan Mullen. So I would expect Florida to give a pretty strong effort.
You got Samford, Missouri, and Florida State after this one. Again, all winnable games. I mean, it's just they've canceled all media the rest of the week, Mike, and I think
that was curious.
That's curious, yeah, and I think that's what it comes down to for me. People that are making this big deal out of his comments, that's kind of stupid. I mean, clearly Florida is going to be recruiting throughout the year. He's not dumb. He didn't get here by accident,
right?
But the fact of the matter is, others are going to use the comments against him because he said it, and they canceled media this week. So it seems from the outside looking in like a cluster, you know what? And they got to go play football this week on the road in the SEC. And so we don't really know until we see him. But
yeah,
here's what we do know. They also lost to LSU and Kentucky this year, and Gator fans didn't like that. I get it. You lose to 2 teams ranked number 1 when you play them, Alabama and Georgia. That happens. Well, not a lot, but it could happen, and it did. They don't like losing to Kentucky, and they don't like losing to LSU, and they lost to both of them. So
a lot of people don't like losing to Kentucky, but Kentucky keeps beating people.
Except for Mississippi State, the Pirate.
Right.
The Pirate won on Halloween weekend. I mean, come on. We should.
That's another one. Like the hot take of the month a few weeks ago was, well, clearly Mike Leach's offense can't work in the SEC, and he's too stubborn, and he doesn't like to recruit.
Who
they
says
had a chance
this
to
stuff?
National guys, national guys.
God.
One of which I actually have a good deal of respect for. But that's been a popular take. Like, oh, Leach, he's a clown. He's stubborn. He runs the same 5 plays. It'll never work in the SEC. They got a chance to be 8-4.
Dude, they've beaten 2 top 15 teams this year.
I know. And look, I had their spring game. I told anybody who would listen, like, do not sleep on Mississippi State this year. Just do not do it. They had a disappointing loss early on a controversial play. Who was that? Memphis.
Yeah.
But I mean, Will Rogers is playing as good a quarterback, playing as good at the quarterback position as anybody in the league. And he's setting like records for accuracy. That's a large part to Mike Leach's offense, and he's actually pretty good. And they've got enough weapons around him. The defense, they got a really good defensive coordinator in Arnett. And so they're a great story. But, to go back to Kentucky, like, you no longer have to be embarrassed losing on the road at Kentucky in a close game. Kentucky's been beating a lot of people under Mark Stoops the last few years.
We'll see, Mike. It's going to be another fun weekend of football. Who wins tonight, Braves or Astros?
Ooh. Man, I hope it's Atlanta tonight. I don't I don't like the feeling of going to a game 7 on the road, backs against the wall, all hands on deck. Um, I think the advantage on the mound is clearly in Atlanta's favor, clearly. But win tonight, get it over with.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. Win tonight and get it over with, and be a heck of a story if it happened. I mean, when that grand slam was hit by Duvall 2 days ago, right? I mean, it was, you just thought for sure. I was watching at a hotel room in New Orleans. Would have been a perfect nightcap for me. I just called Bucks Saints, just called Tom Brady 4 touchdown passes, a pick 6 to win it. It's Halloween night. I'm near the quarter. I just had a big buffet meal at Fogo de Chao, and all I want to do is watch a Braves championship, and Duvall hits that grand slam, and I'm like, this is going to be one of the best weekends ever. And then they couldn't get anybody out.
Hey, I didn't get to check in on your call on Sunday. What did you utilize the 7,000th completion note?
I am mad at myself because I had that in my notes. Jamie, I had it.
I worked so hard for that, man.
I know, 19 more, and he gets to 7,000. But what would happen? There were so many other moving parts where he was about to have another game-winning drive, which would have been his 51st. He was going to have another 10-point comeback. He's the all-time leader in that one. So I was utilizing those numbers, not to mention career touchdown pass 603, 604, 605, 606. And I never got to 7,000. So I'm angry at myself. I apologize to you. That was a great nugget, and I just didn't squeeze it in.
It's okay, man.
I feel bad. I feel bad.
By the way, Bruce Feldman just reported former Southern Cal head coach Clay Helton is expected to be hired as the new Georgia Southern head coach. The deal could get finalized within the next 24 to 48 hours. Matt Zenitz first had it.
When Zenitz tweeted that earlier today, I tweeted out, there's not a bigger culture shock, or it's the definition of culture shock, LA to Statesboro. Like,
yeah, right.
Give me 2 cities that are more polar opposite than LA and Statesboro.
I know. Well, good for Clay. I'm glad he's getting another shot.
You did great there.
The dominoes are going to start falling. I mean, I think in a month from now, there's going to be some bombshells. I'm not sure we're done firing coaches, and you've got you got some significant openings there. And again, the so-called hottest name, James Franklin, Darren.
I haven't lost 3 straight games.
But I mean, like, I can't put my finger on the pulse of how much Penn State Nation even loves James Franklin.
There is not a consistent pulse on that at all. It's
right.
gone on for a couple of years.
So you got this guy who's being thrown out there as the guy, and his own fan base might not even be crazy about him. Yeah, there's just some crazy things are going to go down here in the next few weeks.
I can tell you there are a lot of Penn State fans and a lot of my friends who are all aboard the, hey, James, there are lots of good jobs out there, buddy.
Yeah, go ahead and take one. Mm-hmm. Right. Because then you've got Matt Rule rumors to Penn State. He's going to leave.
I hadn't seen that.
Oh, that's out there. He's going to leave the Panthers they gave him one of the best contracts ever. He's just going to walk away from that. But that's out there. That's out there. Mark Stoops would be out there. Penn State opens up. Oh boy. I mean, fireworks everywhere.
Yeah.
But this has become the second most entertaining part of college football. Number 1 is the games. Number 2 is the drama with coaching.
Oh, it's so much fun that you let guys get 3 or 4 games into their career and you start calling to fire them.
Yeah, that's it.
That's good. It's terrible. Fire him now.
Hey, if you're a Gamecock fan, I know for some of you, maybe you thought this was going to be like a 7-win season or something crazy. They are exactly where I thought they would be. I think Shane has done a good job, but he is facing a ton of obstacles. Just feel good about the fact you got a guy who loves it there. I don't care if Virginia Tech opens up. He's not leaving. He's given everything he has to that program. He knows there's some work to do. Anybody who took that job was aware of that. That's why a lot of people shied away from that job, quite frankly. But you don't have to worry about all this noise. Just be happy about that. Finish up the season strong. Start to figure out, what there is to build upon for next year, what the key players are, and then, hope that 2022 is more promising. But I wouldn't be down on this season because I if you were realistic about it, 4-4, you weren't going to do much better than that.
Yeah, I mean they November is not the gauntlet that it was. I mean they can win a couple of games in November, so we'll see if they can or what happens. But maybe starting Saturday night. I said before the year I thought the biggest thing for Shane would be win a game you're not supposed to win.
Right.
So let's see if he can get one of those here in the month of November because they're right now all games you're not supposed to win. So we'll find out.
Yep.
Mike, have a wonderful week. Go Braves, and we'll talk to you next week. I'm sure we'll have more to talk about. We didn't even get to the Gary Patterson stuff, but we'll hold off on that until next week.
I got a great Gary Patterson story that I'll share with you next week.
Yeah, keep that one in the arsenal, and we'll make it part of our conversation. Thank you.
You got it. Enjoyed it, guys. Take care.
There you go. Mike Morgan, ESPN, the SEC Network, the ACC Network, the NFL, Major League Baseball, minor league baseball, hockey, all of it, everything.
Cricket.
Yeah, he's the man. All right, it is past due for a timeout, so we got to hit one of those. And coming up next, the Shane Beamer press conference. We'll check in on that. We've got Keith Allsep joining us as well. We'll break down much of what Shane has to talk about. Some of what he'll talk about is who's going to start at quarterback this week. We'll see if he announces an official starter. Could be Jason Brown. We always want to remind you about our friends at Share Healthcare. ShareHealthcare.com. More affordable, more options. Take care of your family for as low as $149 a month. ShareHealthcare.com. ShareHealthcare.com. Hang tight. The JB and Goldwater Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice and driven by Stokes Volkswagen. We'll be right back. Right here in our backyard is Motley Rice LLC, a law firm that hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for South Carolinians who were injured while traveling by plane or bus, harmed by medical drugs and devices, or burdened by dangerous auto recalls, including Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. We are honored to have Motley Rice as a sponsor for the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risk their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work, and two others you probably don't think much about, stuck with a big medical bill or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. ShareHealthcare.com.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Lowcountry. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Family vacations, a new car, a new boat, all cost money, but you don't necessarily have to make more to afford any of that if you can save cash that's flying out the window now. iHelp Consulting can help you finally get the kids to Disney World, upgrade the minivan, or drop that new boat in the water next summer. Let Daniel and iHelp Consulting consult with you. No fees, just savings. You pay them a percentage of those savings. Save on essential services, credit card fees, you name it. Let them find it. These folks are incredible. iHelpConsulting.com. How can I help you?
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Clamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the national anthem.
JB Goldwater Show. Live, loud, and online.
Final less than an hour on a Tuesday afternoon, the JB and Goldwater Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice and again driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com. DB's Cheesesteaks is where you can go to fill up on lunch or supper, or you can make sure you've got the DoorDash app or any other delivery app available to you here in the Low Country. They'll drop it off at your doorstep. DB's Cheesesteaks.com. Try my favorite if you haven't. Buffalo Chicken Cheesesteak. Don't forget the Boardwalk Fries. DB's Cheesesteaks.com. JB and Darren, follow us on social media at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Media JB and at Darren Goldwater. Send your messages in the Share Healthcare chat lines like David and Adam and many of you have done, and we'll make sure that you are a part of our conversation here until 2 o'clock. We still have Keith Allsep to come, and he'll be joining us in the next 15 minutes or so. So this will be a short segment. We'll take a time out and get him back in here. And, of course, we also will be monitoring Shane Beamer's press conference up in Columbia as he is set to address the media today about this weekend's ball game between the Gators and South Carolina. He will certainly get into, Darren, the quarterback situation. It looks like the depth chart that was issued just a little while ago now has Jason Brown or Zeb Noland in there. The key with all that is how quickly is Zeb Noland healing from his surgery last week. But as many of us have discussed over the last week or so, and I say many of us as in many of you and all of us, Jason Brown appears to be likely, and he appears to be more mobile because Zeb Noland, unfortunately, was a sitting duck against the Texas A&M Aggies last week in College Station. So we'll see what Shane's got to say on that as he has now stepped up and starting to issue his comments there. Tonight, again, the initial college football playoff rankings will be released, and we'll fuss and discuss those more tomorrow. We will have JC tomorrow as well. Darren, I'm with Mike, and I think you agreed as well. It's going to be neat to see them. They're meaningless. They're going to change probably in a week or two anyways, and then they'll change again. But there isn't Cincinnati involved this time, like really involved, not like, hey, where will they be somewhere as far as are they going to be close? And if they keep winning, no. Like Cincinnati's expecting to be in the top 4 tonight. Mm-hmm. But will they be in the top 4? I'd say Michigan State says, well, we're going to be in the top 4 tonight, but will they be? These are two very interesting teams to the conversation in addition to the classics that have been there every year. And so I think that will be an interesting dynamic in tonight's rankings because it hadn't really been there a whole lot.
And Mike was right when he said that this ranking system, it's not like if you're 5, you can't leapfrog 4 if everybody keeps winning in front of you. Because theoretically speaking, if Ohio State is outside of the top 4, which they likely will be, but then Ohio State goes through Michigan State, and then Ohio State beats Michigan, and then Ohio State wins the Big Ten championship, they will climb continuously regardless of who's ahead of them. There's a point, right, where they may not be able to jump, but they will continue to climb. And that is something to keep in mind. But I do think a peek into the mindset of the committee. There are a few different members of the committee, so the mindset could be a little bit different. So an idea of right now, do they view Oregon ahead of Ohio State right now? Do they view Michigan State? Where do they view them compared to Ohio State? But that works itself out. Where is Wake Forest in all of this? Is it even possible, if they run the table, that they are left out? And then Cincinnati, where is Cincinnati going to be in all this? Just an early mindset feel of their impression of the first 10 weeks of the season. It tells you something. It doesn't tell you a whole lot. A lot of it can change. It will change. But it gives you a peek behind the curtain as to what they're thinking now.
Yeah, and I do think there's a chance that if, let's say, Wake went undefeated, I think there's a real chance, because the ACC and the Pac-12 both have an identity crisis, and Oregon's going to be in the thick of it. There's nobody in the Pac-12 with less than 3 losses right now. Now, all that being said, as you have to judge teams based on who they are, not necessarily always based on who everybody else is. But Mike also hit the nail on the head. That's not always the case. They look at your strength of schedule and who you played in this, that, and the other. So the ACC and the Pac-12 are going to have more of that. That's not a problem in the Big Ten. As a matter of fact, in the Big Ten, even if you have a loss, there's a help model to that, because there are so many great teams. Michigan State or Ohio State, either one of them with 1 loss at the end of the year is going to be in it. Period. The end. And you know what? With 2 losses, they're probably not going to be in it, but they're going to be like right there knocking on the door, just because of who they had to play to go through it. Same thing in the SEC. That's not the case in those other leagues, though. So that's an interesting angle to this. And Wake Forest, I've got a feeling, Darren, you're probably going to see Wake right around where they are. They're at 10 right now in the rankings, like the AP. I think they're going to be 9 or 10 tonight. They're probably going to get a little bit of credit. I don't think they're going to be lower than that. I don't think there's a reason for them to be lower than that.
Yeah, and the fact that their defense is having trouble stopping anybody on the ground, that doesn't bode well for you when you start saying, all right, if we're going to start comparing the top 4 teams, right? We're not just saying who's better than who. We're saying the elite of the elite. If you can't stop the run, you're not going to be ahead of the elites. So they won't be there. So I agree. I think they're in the 10 range, in the 8 to 10 range.
Yeah, I think they're in the 8 to 10 range, and then they're going to have some opportunities to see what happens down the stretch. But Cincinnati is certainly who I have my eye on. I don't think Cincinnati's in the top 4 tonight. I really don't. I think they're going to be just on the outside looking in, Darren.
It hurts them. Like I said yesterday, they need the eye test. They need to pile on, and they haven't the last 2 weeks in particular. Here's another interesting question for the committee. Oklahoma has consistently been both ranked and power rated very high, even though they've had their issues as well. Oklahoma struggled with the same Tulane team that Cincinnati did. Is it better for Oklahoma than it is for Cincinnati? That's a question that the committee has to answer. Was Oklahoma sliding past Tulane better in their eyes than Cincinnati sliding past Tulane? So that, to me, is another interesting dynamic. What to do with Oklahoma, I think, is when we get down to the end. Let's say Oklahoma is this 1-loss team. When we get down to the end, or undefeated, I'm curious.
I think Oklahoma has changed their view in the eyes of the committee because of the change at quarterback. Like, if they were undefeated right now and Spencer Rattler was still in there struggling, I think the committee would view them a little bit differently. But they made a change, and now Caleb Williams has kind of found a little bit of a groove, right? I think
a little, right? So, I mean, after struggling mightily in that first half against Kansas, they have found a little bit of something. But there's a lot more resume building in my eyes for Oklahoma.
Oh, I agree. No, don't get me wrong. I don't disagree with that at all. I just think that had they not made a move and they still had a struggling Spencer Rattler in there, I almost feel like the committee would view them a little bit differently than they do now. With Caleb Williams and they're running that offense. I think that is in the look, they have so much information, so I'm obviously speaking very surface here, but in the minds of so many out there, think about how you thought about Oklahoma before, like, oh God, they're just bound to get beat. And now it's like, well, they made a change of quarterback. I mean, they're pretty good. It's just how people think about it. I don't know that they're that much better. Time will tell, but it's just how people think about it. So we'll see. I've got a feeling though tonight you're going to have pretty much the top four with the exception of Cincinnati, and I think Michigan State's going to be in there. To David's point, didn't Cincinnati beat Notre Dame? They did. And since then, Notre Dame has climbed their way back up to where they are in the top 10. Were they 7th or 8th or something like now? But Cincinnati was less than impressive at Navy, and I'd say they were less than impressive at Tulane. It was a 31-12, nice, comfortable win, but in the eyes of the committee,
it was not comfortable, man. I mean, so I was watching that and live betting that game because it was so uncomfortable for Cincinnati. I was like, yeah, here's an opportunity. And it was a very good opportunity that afternoon. It was not comfortable. They didn't look good. They looked uncomfortable. If you want to say it wasn't comfortable to watch, they looked uncomfortable. So, yeah, they beat Notre Dame. That's their best win by far.
Yeah.
And there's nothing else on their schedule that will come close to a win like that. And if they keep playing the way they're playing, I'm not convinced they run the table anyway.
Yeah, I know, and I agree with that totally. So right now you got 8-9 weeks worth of information, and then you have the "what have you done for me lately" factor in there. And the "what have you done for me lately" factor is heavily in favor of Michigan State, and getting in that top 4. And Oklahoma finally put it together this weekend against Texas Tech, but prior to that, they've had their struggles as well. So it's all going to change. You brought up Oregon yesterday. They probably have as much of a case as anybody, but I don't think they'll crack the top 4 tonight. I think they'll probably be 5 or 6 or something like that. Maybe even right behind Cincinnati. I don't know. I don't know how this thing's going to unfold, but I do know this: Bama's going to be in there. Georgia's going to be in there, and the wild card's Ohio State. Where do they put Ohio State? I feel like we've had this conversation with Ohio State 3 or 4 of the last 5 or 6 years, Darren. They seemingly drop a game somewhere, and then everybody goes, well, you're just basically waiting on Ohio State to get into the top 4, and they generally get there.
There will be more furor over anything that if Ohio State is ahead of Oregon right now. 2 one-loss teams with a head-to-head in Oregon's favor, and it's not out of the possibility. It's not out of the realm of possibility that Ohio State is ahead of Oregon. I don't think it will happen now. I do think by the end of the year that could happen. I don't think it'll happen now.
Yeah, this is where we like it. Soon it will be talking about like 16 or 17 teams trying to get into the playoff committee's initial ranking of 12 teams. Soon.
And it'll be less exciting, to be perfectly honest, because there's going to be more that you absolutely know, and the teams that are on the fringe getting in, like, okay, great.
Yeah. No, you're right, dude. I mean, if we were having this conversation of 12 right now, there would literally be no talk about who the top.
You could this whole segment we just did,
top 10 would be.
Yeah,
I mean, where the intrigue would be, Darren, would be who gets the buys, who are the top 4 with a buy. And who are 5 through 8 who would get if that model stands. So there would be intrigue as to who gets a home game. There'd be intrigue as to who gets the first round bye, and then there would be intrigue as to who gets the final couple of spots. So there would be intrigue there, but not at the level that it is now of, well, there's only 4 to go around, and right now there's 7 or 8 teams that probably have a case.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I know there's 3 teams that have a case. Probably 7 or 8 right now.
I think I'll say this as we wrap this part up. I think Oklahoma is in the top 4 tonight. I do think that.
I agree. I know. I'm telling you. I think it's Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, Michigan State, probably in that order.
I lean because I think they're going to put Cincinnati in there at 4, just to put them in and say, see, and then we'll see how it shakes out after. But
instead of Michigan State, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, you get to the resume comparison there between those 2 teams, and I like Michigan State's better because they've been playing in the Big Ten. We'll see. Who knows? But Cincinnati's won some games, haven't they? So we'll find out. All right, we need to hit a timeout. when we return, Keith Allsep will join us, the host of the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast, and we'll update you on Shane Beamer's comments. A really neat addition. Saturday night is the military appreciation game in Columbia, which means the halftime show is one of the best in the country. They do this every year. It is something special. You never want to leave your seat for this. There's a really neat addition to this year announced by Shane, so we'll get to that and also get you an update on the quarterback position and a couple of others to pass along as well. So hang tight. Final segment of the afternoon on JB and Goldwater. We'll be here in a moment. Hopefully, you won't ever need legal help for a catastrophic injury or health issues from a medical drug or device. But if you or a loved one suffers injury or loss, Motley Rice LLC is a nationally recognized law firm that is right here in Mount Pleasant at 28 Ridgeside Boulevard. Thank you, Motley Rice, for sponsoring the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show. Visit motleyrice.com for more. motleyrice.com.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. You know what happens when you sell record numbers of new vehicles? That's right, we take in record numbers of local trades. Despite what the news is saying, quality pre-owned vehicles really aren't that hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate and on the web at stokesvw.com. We've got over 1,200 pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and all at a fraction of the price when new. Every vehicle has been inspected and reconditioned, many with the balance of factory warranty. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, you don't need perfect credit to get approved for a quality pre-owned vehicle. And we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us. You're going to love our pre-owned selection, I guarantee it. So come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Negative trade equity financed a new loan, subject to lender approval.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
Family vacations, a new car, a new boat, all cost money, but you don't necessarily have to make more to afford any of that if you can save cash that's flying out the window now. iHelp Consulting can help you finally get the kids to Disney World, upgrade the minivan, or drop that new boat in the water next summer. Let Daniel and iHelp Consulting consult with you. No fees, just savings. You pay them a percentage of those savings. Save on essential services, credit card fees, you name it. Let them find it. These folks are incredible. iHelpConsulting.com. How can I help you?
You hear me talk about Dog and Duck all the time, and there's no other place I'm going to watch my college and NFL than the Dog and Duck. They have 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road. They have specials all football season long, like $12 pitchers of their own D2 brew, $5 pints of Sierra Nevada, weekly pick'em sheets with prizes, and the best wings in town, bar none. For all your football, college, and NFL, the Dog and Duck, Clements Ferry Road, Bell Hall, and Park West. Okay, what's going on today, huh? Anything to talk about?
All right, greetings and a good Monday afternoon. Greetings and a good Tuesday afternoon. Greetings and a good Wednesday afternoon, and welcome aboard. All right, greetings and a good Thursday afternoon. Greetings and a good Friday afternoon, and welcome aboard. All right, 129, final segment, Tuesday afternoon. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show. Motley Rice, their team fights every day for Americans who are injured while traveling on a plane or a bus or who've been harmed by medical drugs and devices. Burdened by auto recalls like the Takata airbags. If you've tried to blow yours up in your face after watching Carolina football from time to time, you might want to head to motleyrice.com. motleyrice.com. All right. Keith Allsep, host of the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast, jumps in now real quick from Shane Beamer. Zeb Nolan did get out there and pitch it around today, so still no official starting quarterback this weekend, although it still continues to probably lean towards Jason Brown. Dylan Wonham is questionable this weekend. One of South Carolina's tackles, Jalen Dickerson appears to be doubtful, and that is pretty much all we've gotten thus far as we get prepared for Saturday night's contest between the Gators and the Gamecocks. Keith, what's up, man?
Hey guys, how's it going? So much like Shane Beamer, I'm wearing my Wounded Warrior shirt today in honor of our veterans, and it's kind of a passion for me. It's estimated that 20 veterans per day commit suicide in our country. The suicide rate for veterans is 1.5 times the suicide rate for the rest of the population. And so if you're a veteran, if you know a veteran that's in crisis, please pass along the veteran crisis hotline number is 1-800-273-8255. Veteran homelessness is also a major issue. There are over 37,000 veterans in our country that are homeless. The homeless population of the United States is 6%, but it's 8% of veterans that are homeless. And you've got a lot of people, quite frankly, that were not done right by the military after coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan for political, for statistical reasons. And, it's just a real passion of mine. The three biggest states in the country, California, Florida, and Texas, have the most homeless veterans. And it's just really a shame that these people go and sacrifice for our country and they come back home. And when their time is up, a lot of them are just cast to the side like an old toy for a kid or an old tool that you don't need anymore.
Mm-hmm. I think it's well said, and it's great to bring attention to that. The Gamecocks do it every year, Keith, when they have the military appreciation game in Columbia. That will be Saturday night in what's going to be a chilly Williams-Brice Stadium, but announced today by Shane Beamer, a little addition to this year's military appreciation game is the fact that the Gamecocks will be led out of the tunnel by students who are veterans at the University of South Carolina who have used their GI Bill or whatever it may be to go back to school. And so they'll gather around the southwest corner of the stadium and lead the Gamecocks onto the field on Saturday night. So maybe that'll be a good omen as to what we'll expect from Carolina football as they try to get above 500 and 5-4. And they got the Gators coming to town, Keith. So we're monitoring Shane's comments today, and I don't know if you agree or disagree with the thought that's out there that Jason Brown is more than likely going to be the starting quarterback Saturday night in Williams-Brice Stadium or not. But we know Zeb Nolan just had surgery. We watched him at Texas A&M where the Aggies just pinned their ears back and came right at him the whole time. He didn't have a prayer all night. You almost felt bad for that young man. So Jason Brown has had his struggles. That's pretty much well documented. But he's also much more mobile, and he might give Carolina the best chance to not go backwards all night instead of, trying to go forwards like you're supposed to do. So how do you kind of view this thing and the situation that they're in at quarterback and what it may look like come Saturday evening?
Well, I would just take with a grain of salt everything Shane Beamer says about injured players. Like Zeb Nolan could be out there throwing the ball in shorts with a brace on his knee from his meniscus injury. That really doesn't mean a whole lot to me. I expect it to be Jason Brown. I think Zeb Nolan could be used in an emergency situation. I mean, here's the thing. South Carolina is 4-4, and they could be 2-6, but they probably could be 5-3 also.
Yeah.
And these last 4 games, if you can just be average on offense, you've got a chance to get to 6 wins because Florida is scuttling right now. Missouri they are in the abyss. I don't agree with Mike that Florida is in the abyss. Maybe they're in the Florida abyss because they are not used to losing games down there. But I mean, what year is this for Dan Mullen? Year 4? Is that right?
Yep.
Well, my good friend Brad Lawing talks about the 5-year coaching cycles, and guys that usually come in, they win with the other coaches' players because of the new excitement, the new scheme, they get it going. But their first couple recruiting classes are not that good. Maybe you make a bad evaluation at quarterback. It was a really big deal when Dan Mullen got Emory Jones, but Emory Jones has lost more games for Florida than he's won games for Florida. I mean, he definitely contributed to that LSU loss with the 2 pick sixes, right? He was a 5-star guy they flipped from Ohio State. He has not panned out. And so Florida has issues. Clemson has major issues. They've got chemistry issues. They've got locker room issues. They've got a lot of things going. Now, Auburn, look at what Mike Bobo's doing with Bo Nix down there.
Yep.
So again, for South Carolina, all is not lost. You've got a chance if you can just be average on offense and you continue to be opportunistic on defense and make plays on special teams, man, they could miraculously get to 6 wins.
Keith, I think where people are, and I totally understand this, I think people are having a difficult time understanding how there could be this large of a turnaround from the offensive side of the football. I mean, we all saw it. We all saw as much as we could take, let's say that, in College Station a couple of weeks ago. Most folks said, "The hell with this. I'm going to go watch anything else that's on TV." So I think it's hard to envision where, this thing has kind of been slipping backwards, falls on its face. It's hard to envision that big of a turnaround. With all that being said, if there is a turnaround, how do you envision that? Because the way I see it, Jason Brown's job, yes, you have to understand what you're doing as a quarterback. Yes, you have to understand the play calls. Yes, you have to be able to communicate. I get all that. Okay. Jason Brown, in my opinion, he's the guy who could kind of muddy the water because, hey, you know what? If it smells like crap and it looks like crap, it probably is crap. Just take off and run. Hey, just find somebody, make somebody pay attention to you, and they stop paying attention to their guy and just throw it to them. Just muddy the waters, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I don't know how realistic it is to expect or to anticipate Jason Brown, leading a turnaround. For me, I think it still has to start up front. And South Carolina has to run the football, but you need to run it when they maybe think you're going to pass it, and you need to pass it when they think you're going to run it, like on first down. With Jason Brown, he's more mobile than Zach Nolan, so maybe you can use some of the same bootleg rollout action used with Luke Doty. But the biggest thing for Jason Brown is he has to value the ball. That is probably a basketball expression, is value each possession. Don't waste a possession by jacking up a bad shot or by throwing a bad pass that gets intercepted. And if he does that early in the game, it will get out of hand. The fans will leave, the boo birds will come out, and it will not end well for South Carolina on Military Appreciation Night.
1:40 on a Tuesday afternoon. Again, we're monitoring Shane Beamer's press conference. I think nothing earth-shattering, by the way, has come out of this thing today. Not really that we expected anything to, but Keith, here's what I'm hoping. It's been hard to watch a lot of what we've seen this year. It's just sucked, to be honest. But they are 4-4. They're 1-4 in the league with a comeback win over Vanderbilt. I get that. What it looks like under the surface to get where you are has not been pretty. But they are 4-4 and they're 1-4. And Florida's 4-4 and they're 2-4. And South Carolina, as we've already talked about a couple of times today, has a navigable November. Like this is not the gauntlet that it looked like back in August or even early September. I mean, this is there. You can win some games over the next 4 weeks and go bowling. And what I'm hoping for is that fans see that. And, you couple that with the fact that all year long we talk about football and how we can't wait. And we have these countdowns. 100 days till football season, this, that, and the other. And then people go, well, I'm not going. We suck. I'm not going. They need you to go. I mean, if you were in South Carolina, Keith, I know you'd be there. But you can't fly back and forth from Texas every weekend. So, the fans need to go. And Shane Beamer is right when he says this. People can get on message boards and spew all the BS they want to about firing coaches 8 games into their career and all that. None of that matters. Shane Beamer is right when he says this. The players need the fans. That's always been true. It's always going to be true. And the fans need to go watch the football game. And I hope they'll do that.
No, I agree. I mean, I had last week on my mailbag segment every week for subscribers. We have a mailbag. They ask their questions. I answer them on today's show. And was, what can we as fans do? And my response is support the team. Go to the games. Make Williams-Brice Stadium home field advantage. Make it a great environment for recruits when they come to these games, because that's really all you can do as a fan. You can bitch and moan and complain and not go and not look forward to going, but you need to go. You paid for the tickets. You paid the seat license. You paid for your parking spot at the field house or Carolina Park or in the fairgrounds. It's a big investment. You need to go and you need to support the team and you need to keep hope alive because, hey, let's face it, there were no national championship or SEC title game appearance hopes for this team. The hope was, man, if we could just get the 6 wins and get to a bowl game, it would be a great season. Well, hey, guess what? You still have a chance. Now,
yeah.
I don't know if it's much better than Jim Carrey saying there's a chance in Dumb and Dumber, but there is a chance.
There is a chance. I mean, the football side of that conversation too, Keith, is if Carolina can find some, think about it like this. If they can find some momentum, even if they don't win the game this weekend and they have to figure out how to just continue to build and put some things back together. And again, I know what the problems are up there. We all know what the problems are, okay? Regardless of what they said, we know what the problems are. But that one at the end of the year is a big game still. And if you could try to get things figured out, and, hey, if you don't go to a bowl game and you find a way to beat the Clemson Tigers, people are going to feel a little bit better in the offseason at 5-7 with a win over Clemson than they would have, okay? So there's a lot to play for, and I think those are those are some of the things that people need to realize. I don't know what this off week is going to mean. I do want to get to this comment here by Frank, and I think it's an interesting comment. Keith, I'm going to read this. I don't know that it is fair for Brown for critics to cite his turnover issues. He really doesn't have enough sample size to judge his abilities and value, in my opinion. He has thrown all of 20 passes in a South Carolina uniform over 3 games. Let's at least give him a game before we label him a, quote, turnover machine, as some have claimed. So I think that's a fair comment. I want to be clear about where I stand. I go off of what I know about Jason Brown from the information I have from the sources in the team. So what I know about Jason Brown is he has really struggled in practice a lot, and that's why he hadn't played. People saw him throw 6 passes in a spring game and thought he was the second coming of Peyton Manning, and he was not. But it's November, and he's been out there working on it, Keith. And I know I'm going to leave it to you now to let us know what you've heard as well. But on the small sample size that we have seen, based that with the information that I have from the inside, he can make some mistakes, and that's buried him a little bit. So I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks to Frank, who is a valued subscriber of the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast.
Yep.
You know, I don't think I'm not labeled him a turnover machine. You know, for me, he hadn't played enough, just like Frank said. I mean, he has struggled.
That's right.
In practice. And look, I mean, we could relitigate what Shane Beamer said on Sunday night. And honestly, it was a fair question. And I don't really think I think it was a coach speak answer, which is what you would expect from a coach during the season. But it's not a Division III offense. It is an NFL offense. And Jason has struggled, and quite frankly, and nothing against the walk-ons who work extremely hard, but when he was in the spring game, I mean, it might as well have been me, you, Darren, and JC and Mike Morgan out there in the secondary. I mean,
yeah,
it was the 4th string defense, and the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th string secondary in the spring game were all walk-ons.
Right.
So,
it's
I had to run Addison out of here because she's out of school today.
Yeah, exactly. Out of school. Yeah. So, hey, I'm going to pop into the studio. Can I come on camera?
That's right.
Well, I mean, to your point though, Keith, and yeah, Frank makes a good point there, and he's not wrong. I agree. I totally agree with him, because if you go into this game and think, well, this kid isn't going to do anything for us to help us win, then you're not helping the cause here. And in addition to that point, as Wes pointed out here yesterday, Darren and Keith, you know, I know you talked to Wes, you probably heard him say the same thing. JC's pointed it out on thebigspur.com. He pointed it out on our program last week. Shane has publicly said about this guy, well, he's a gamer. Well, you know, generally the gamer guys, you play them in the game. That's kind of how that works. I remember a guy named Alshon Jeffrey, who Steve repeatedly said, well, yeah, he doesn't practice very well, but he gets in the game and he's Alshon. You know, I'm not putting anybody in the Alshon bracket, but I'm just saying, you know, that you never know. These comments you got to take them tongue in cheek and see how they kind of work out. But if he's a gamer, he's a gamer. I mean, let's see what he looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with Jason Brown is I think he's kind of a gunslinger kind of guy, like Brett Favre, you know, at the end of his career. Sometimes you're going to get good Brett Favre, and then you're going to get bad Brett Favre, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Jason Brown is the second coming of Brett Favre. I'm just saying he's a guy that doesn't mind throwing it and seeing what happens. And sometimes that can be good. Obviously, as we saw against Texas A&M, sometimes it can be bad. For me, South Carolina's got to run the football. You know, you got to have E.J. Jenkins and Josh Vann on the field at the same time. You've got to get the ball to Agent Zero, Jaheim Bell. And, you know, those are really the keys for me. Florida, they're kind of in disarray. And, you know, the first 5 to 10 minutes of this game could go a long way in determining the outcome of the game, because Florida at 4-4, just like Clemson now, all their goals are off the table from what they had. right? Other than winning their in-state rivalry,
right.
all their goals are off the table. And so, only one player stayed out for the alma mater. I'm going to have David Waters from Gator Breakdown on the show tomorrow to talk about Florida. I mean, he's not, the biggest fan of Todd Grantham. Neither am I.
Torian Gray was
you have to wonder, does Todd Grantham have pictures, compromising photos of Dan Mullen or somebody in his family? I mean, I don't know how you scapegoat Torian Gray and the other secondary coach and keep him. I mean, he is clearly an issue, but it's kind of been a tough year for old Danny Kicks to figure out the quarterback position, and he's a quarterback whisperer. And to me, he's one of the best play callers in all of college football. And man, if, you're 8 games in and old Danny Kicks hadn't figured it out, that's a pretty tough deal.
Yeah. So I'm glad you have him on. I didn't get down this road with Mike Morgan earlier, but it is a question that I have, and it's based on recent results. And the question is very simple with a complicated answer, I'm sure. Have the Gators quit? And why do I ask that question? Well, they're only 8 games. Of course they haven't quit. I mean, they like playing for Dan Mullen. Okay. How many of them didn't play in the bowl game?
Well, there's an article out there right now, and it's in The Athletic, and it is very much alluding to the fact that those players have quit, that they are not playing hard. It's a whole bunch of anonymous coaches that are basically trashing the way they're playing on the field and the effort in the Gators are playing with. It's in The Athletic right now.
Well, I mean, and to your point, Darren, it's, generally when it becomes public that a team has quit, the good teams, they beat the crap out of whoever they have up next on the schedule. And, so the hope is they have actually quit if you're South Carolina. And it's not just some theory that's floating around. But what they were in a New Year's Six Bowl this past year, and everybody opted out. So, I mean, I don't know that I'm a believer in Dan Mullen, Keith. Darren, I'm a believer in this guy as a coach, okay? But I don't know that it's all necessarily clicking in that locker room for whatever reason. And you might be, Keith, keeping Todd Grantham might be one of the reasons why.
Well, look, I believe in Dan Mullen as a play caller. I mean, he's just a kind of a different kind of guy, kind of like Mike Leach. I mean, he's just, I don't know if he's somewhere on the spectrum like I suspect Mike Leach is, but he's just different. And he's not really a people person. He tries to be. He's not, he doesn't really have a lot of charisma. He's not beloved, I don't think, by anybody except, probably his family. And he's not a great recruiter. He doesn't really like recruiting. I think he would probably prefer to be in the NFL. And I think if Jacksonville would have had the number 2 pick instead of the number 1 pick in the NFL draft, Dan Mullen probably would be the coach at Jacksonville, because I honestly think it came down to him and Urban Meyer. And so, hey, here's one I heard for you, and that was before. This is for Darren. So if James Franklin leaves for Southern Cal, Dan Mullen to Penn State, what would you think about that, Darren?
That would not go over very well because the whole conversation that we've just been having here, the personality that wouldn't go over. That would not go over well because Penn State, the expectation will be that it is one of the best jobs in the country and swing for the fences. Mullen right now is not the fences. Do you settle on him? Maybe. I mean, does it fall to him? Maybe. But
what about last year, though? What about last year when he beat boat race Georgia, almost beat Alabama in the SEC championship game? I mean, that's a one possession game.
I don't know. I don't know what the thought would have been last year. I know that this is the second straight year where there is enough, at least second straight, third or fourth straight, that there's enough fracturing in the fan base that wants a change, whether it's a forced change, which will never, ever happen, or James Franklin leaving. I don't know what the fan base would have felt like if it was Dan Mullen. I don't think it would be Mullen now, though. I do not think that would be Mullen now.
When he got hired at Mississippi State, I don't remember the process. Was he their top guy? I can't remember. He was.
I don't.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, he wasn't at Florida. I mean, Florida fans
I know that.
were, throwing, breaking their favorite coffee mug, throwing it into the floor when they saw that Sunday morning, because they all wanted Chip Kelly or Scott Frost. Well, who's done better?
Yeah, Dan Mullen.
Dan Mullen has. Okay. He is a ball coach. And is he having a down year this year? Yes, but they very well could be 8-4, and 8-4 in a down year. Hell, I know I'd take it.
Yeah.
Oh, we're awful. We only went 8-4. God almighty, the world's coming to an end.
Yeah, those 8-4 down years, I love those.
Clemson's going to be better than 8-4 on a down year.
Yeah. Well, maybe not this year. We'll have to see how it all works out for them. They still got Wake and still got to go to come to Columbia. Yeah, I don't know, Keith. I mean, again, I think there's a real opportunity here for South Carolina this weekend. Final minute and a half here with you.
I mean, you don't want my college football playoff top 4?
I'm going to get that. The final minute and a half on the Gamecocks. Final minute and a half on the Gamecocks. Keys to the game this weekend that are important to you.
Well, you gotta run the ball. You gotta start fast on offense. You gotta win the turnover battle, and you gotta make big plays. You want to try to, if you could get up 14-0 early, and God only knows that'd be a miracle for this offense to score 14 points in the first quarter. They've only done it once against FBS competition. That was Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
And then they went like over 50 minutes without another score. So, if you could get up early and then just keep making plays, be opportunistic on defense. Emory Jones,
they throw a lot of picks, man.
We'll throw it up for grabs.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not he doesn't value each possession very well.
They've thrown 14 interceptions this year between Richardson and Jones. We're going to have a lot of that in the big Gamecock preview show coming up on Friday. Stop the run. That's what Florida will do. They will run the football. They're going to run it on Saturday until Carolina proves they can stop it. They haven't proved that, so they're going to run it until they prove they can stop it. And we'll see if Carolina's up for the task. All right, Keith, rankings out tonight. Who you got? Who's in there?
So for me, my personal top 4 is Georgia, number 1, Alabama, number 2, and then 3 and 4 to me have the best wins, and that's Michigan State and Oregon. Michigan State beat Michigan, who was like number 6 in the country. They're undefeated, and Oregon went to the horseshoe and beat Ohio State. I know James Franklin had a hard time figuring out who they were playing and where Ohio State plays, but it is the horseshoe. And, Penn State hung in there a lot better than I thought they would. I thought they might get boat race, but they didn't. And that's kind of why. And then I would have Cincinnati 5th and Ohio State 6th. Oklahoma, to me, is not a college football playoff team. Nobody in the Big 12 is.
I think that's a fair assessment. I think that I personally believe Oklahoma is going to be in there tonight, and I think Michigan State's going to be in there. But I don't think Cincinnati's going to be in the first rankings, and there's going to be a lot of frustration over that, Keith. But Darren said it well yesterday, and I totally agree with him. I think that there's 7 or 8 teams right now Two of them are not a coin flip. Two of them are absolutely in there. They're the two from the SEC. And the rest of them, you can make an argument for all of them in some way, shape, or form.
And a lot of it will shake itself out. I mean,
yeah,
the Michigan State, Ohio State thing, that's going to shake itself out.
That's right.
Where you slot Cincinnati, depending on how they finish out the year and what happens around the rest of the country, that stuff's going to figure it out. This is a very initial thing. It's just laying the foundation here. We got a lot of games left.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this on the Big Ten right now. Honestly, the best team, the way they're playing right now in the Big Ten, is Wisconsin. They got off to a tremendous start, but you do not want to face the Badgers right now.
No, you don't.
They're
not at a. They're much.
They could be the spoiler. Think if it's them, versus Michigan State or Ohio State in particular, and Wisconsin beats them. That's if Ohio State runs the table, that gives them 2 losses. I don't know if they get in.
I don't think Wisconsin gets into the Big Ten championship because right now it's looking like it's going to be. I think
the final game
beat Minnesota, and they're better than Minnesota.
That's the final game of the year for the Badgers at Minnesota. They've got Rutgers, Northwestern, Nebraska. If they're playing this way, they're going to beat all those 3 teams.
Yeah,
and then.
But for me, Oklahoma, dude, when you struggle for 4 quarters against Kansas, when you struggle and have to come from behind against Tulane, you don't pass the eyeball test. And the eyeball test is part of the committee, right? It is the eyeball test. And their defense is just like Texas. It's softer than a roll of Charmin. They don't give a damn about tackling. They turn down contact. They want to reach out and try to, see if you'll just go to the ground like pulling flags in flag football.
Well, they need to be like the store brand of toilet paper then. How about that?
That John Wayne toilet paper.
Yeah, that's right.
Rough and tough, and it don't take no poop.
All right, Keith. Braves win tonight or tomorrow night? They're going to win one of them. Which one's it going to be?
I think if you're the Braves, you better win tonight. You've got Max Fried on the bump, Cory said.
Yeah,
he was the best pitcher they had the second half of the season, but his last 2 starts have not been good. And you got to think, Max Fried, he's a competitor, and if you told me Adam Duvall was going to hit a grand slam in the first inning tonight, I'd say the Braves win.
Well, he's going to hit a grand slam in the first inning tonight, so we'll see.
Braves
Somebody's
win.
going to hit one. I don't know. I'm just making that up. I think it's going to be a good game. I really do. I think Fried will have it a little bit more figured out tonight, and see how far that gets him. I hope it gets him through 5 or 6. Keith, on that note, we'll let you run. Go Braves. Go Gamecocks. And as always, thank you so much. The Locked on the Gamecocks podcast is the best Carolina podcast out there. I know a lot of you subscribe already. Tell your friends. Keith deserves it because he does a special, special job. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, guys. Have a great rest of the week.
Yes, sir. There you go. Keith Allsep. This segment is brought to you by our friends at iHelp Consulting as well. How does $50,000 in savings sound? 50 grand. A healthcare facility saved $50,000 by going to iHelpConsulting.com. And you don't pay a fee, you pay a percentage of the savings. It is that easy. If you own a business, iHelpConsulting.com. iHelpConsulting.com. They present our segment on Tuesdays with Keith Allsep. My man Daniel Owens. Hey Daniel, if you're watching. Thanks to Cory, Mike, Keith, Darren, and all of you.
Thank you.
We're a little bit late getting out of here, but it is a terrific Tuesday afternoon. We hope you enjoy it. Have a cold one outside tonight watching the Braves around a fire pit. That sounds nice. We'll be back tomorrow, hopefully celebrating the World Series. We do have JC Sherbert as well, and we can't wait. Until then, the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen and presented by Motley Rice, will be on a 22-hour timeout. We'll see you tomorrow.